History remembers kings, warriors, conquerors. But what if the greatest forces in ancient America wore no crown, wielded no sword, and walked not as men, but as women? What if the lifeblood of ancient cities, the wisdom of sacred calendars, and the voice of the gods themselves flowed through mothers, oracles, and queens? What if buried beneath the mounds, etched into rock, whispered through legend, and still sung in ceremony, there lives an ancient truth, that women were not the shadows behind the throne. They were the throne. This is Untold Secrets of Ancient America, and today we uncover the stories of the matriarchs and priestesses, women of power, in ancient America. In many indigenous societies of North America, power didn't pass from father to son. It passed from mother to daughter. This wasn't just inheritance. It was law, cosmology, and sacred truth. In the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, formed long before European contact, the clan mother system held real and enduring political power. These were the women who selected the male leaders of the Confederacy. If a chief strayed from his duty, it was the clan mothers who could depose him. They oversaw treaties, diplomacy, and the decision of war or peace. They were seen not as supporters of power, but as the root of it. In Cherokee society, a woman might be named Gigwa, or beloved woman. This title gave her the highest political voice in the council. She could pardon prisoners, speak in war councils, and serve as the spiritual guardian of the people. These roles were not symbolic. They were foundational. The belief wasn't just that women birthed life. It was that they birthed civilization. In ancient America, the world itself was feminine. The earth was a living being, Mother Earth. The moon was a timekeeper, a fertility guide, a divine calendar. Corn, the staff of life, was seen as a sacred woman. Among the Pueblo peoples, the Corn Maiden represented the balance between sustenance and spirit. Planting rituals, harvest dances, and solstice ceremonies often centered around female deities and priestesses. The Hopi spoke of Spider Woman, the primordial weaver who spun life into existence. Women were the ceremonial keepers of food, hearth, and lineage, powers that echoed the sacred architecture of the cosmos. In Zuni tradition, female priestesses tended sacred altars and were trained in songs, astronomy, and ritual cycles passed down for generations. And among the Navajo, Changing Woman was a central deity, representing growth, healing, and the rhythm of the seasons. Her teachings shaped the moral and cosmological framework of an entire people. The female was not just present in spirituality, it was its center. In Mesoamerica, the divine feminine often took a celestial form. Goddesses like Ixchel of the Maya ruled over the moon, childbirth, medicine, and rainbows. She was worshipped in great temples by women who served as midwives, healers, and astronomer-priestesses. At the temple of Ixchel on the island of Cozumel, Maya women made pilgrimages to seek guidance, fertility, and spiritual visions. These weren't passive rituals. They were deeply mathematical, astrological, and timed to lunar cycles. Among the Aztec, Cihuacoatl was both goddess and office. She was a deity of childbirth and warfare, a reminder that life and death flow through the same portal. And the women who served in her cult were trained in the arts of medicine, divination, and sacrifice. The Mixtec revered female lords who governed both politics and prophecy. Lady Nine Grass, depicted in ancient codices, was a priestess who performed heart sacrifice and guided her people through ritual calendars. And even in the later Inca Empire, women known as Akla Kuna, chosen women, were taken as children and trained in the arts of weaving, ritual brewing, astronomy, and sacred ceremony. Some became wives of nobles, others priestesses of the sun. They were considered brides of the divine. These women didn't just serve temples, they were the temple. Cahokia, the lost city on the Mississippi, once home to over 20,000 people and filled with towering mounds aligned to the sun and stars. Most stories focus on the warriors, the hunters, the sun chiefs. But within the famed Mound 72, something extraordinary was found. 4 women, laid out on cedar litters, surrounded by exotic artifacts and buried with ceremonial precision. They were not sacrificed, they were honored. Cedar was sacred. Their alignment was astronomical. Their grave, unlike others in the mound, suggested reverence, not ritual death. Were they priestesses, astronomers, heroines of oral legend now lost? Some archaeologists have proposed that Cahokia, like many mound cultures, may have elevated women to ritual status, gatekeepers of time, fertility, and spiritual lore. And while we may never know their names, the symbols remain: solar discs, lunar alignments, seasonal orientation, all pointing to a society deeply attuned to balance and the feminine role in sustaining it. From the Arctic to the Amazon, spiritual power was often defined by one's ability to move between worlds, and women were among the most gifted travelers. Among the Inuit and Yupik, female shamans entered trance using rhythmic drumming, breath control, and sacred song. They called upon animal spirits, predicted weather, healed the sick, and retrieved lost souls. These women were not seen as witches, but as necessary conduits between the human world and the unseen. One legend tells of a woman who, after drowning beneath sea ice, returned to life bearing knowledge of future storms. She was blind in one eye, but could see omens in the aurora borealis. In the Amazon, curanderas and yachak warmis used hallucinogenic plants not for visions, but for communion with ancestors, spirits, and the jungle itself. These women healed through song, dream, and smoke. Some were midwives, others were psychopomps, guides for the dying. Their tools were not swords or staffs, but gourds, rattles, leaves, and chants passed through unbroken lineages of power. Women didn't just serve the divine, some were the law. In Natchez society, the white woman was a high priestess who advised the paramount chief and oversaw spiritual policy. Her word was final in ceremonial matters. In the Mississippi Delta, legends survive of warrior queens who led their people through times of migration and siege. One such woman, unnamed but feared, was said to wear copper armor and a cloak of owl feathers. Her voice could stir warriors into frenzy or silence them with a gesture. Among the Tlingit and Haida of the Pacific Northwest, women owned clan crests, sacred objects, and the rights to tell ancestral stories. In a culture where lineage defined identity, this was real, tangible power. And among the Mandan and Hidatsa, elder women conducted winter storytelling sessions, events where tribal lore, cosmology, and memory were passed down. These women were judges of truth, keepers of morality, and guardians of tribal cohesion. Their court was the circle. Their gavel was the tale. Colonization erased many names, burned many altars, and silenced many songs. Women who once led ceremonies were labeled witches. Matriarchs were pushed from council fires. Sacred lands were seized, and oral traditions were distorted. But memory is resilient. From Alaska to the Amazon, fragments remain, petroglyphs of spiral goddesses, burial mounds containing obsidian mirrors and ritual beads, stone figurines with coiled hair, serpentine staffs, and lunar eyes. Even now, staffs and lunar eyes. Even now, among indigenous communities, stories are being reclaimed. Women are reviving old songs, recovering sacred rites, and stepping back into roles of healing, storytelling, and guidance. The matriarchs were never gone. They were simply waiting to be remembered. Across the continent, beneath soil and stone, behind legends and lullabies, the power of women still pulses. They were priestesses of flame, astronomers of moonlight, mothers of nations, speakers with the dead, keepers of law, and they were silenced, but never erased. This has been Untold Secrets of Ancient America, and today we've walked the forgotten path of the matriarchs and priestesses who once ruled from behind the veil. And next time you look to the stars or feel the hum of the earth beneath your feet, listen closely. You may hear her voice again,